So
Okay, yep, no problem. And I'll go over this, but since you're here, before we get started, if you go into your box where you see yourself right now, or if you go into the participants where you can see everybody's name lined up, there'll be a button that says rename. And then this second box will pop up and you can put your name and the ages of your kiddos in there. And if you can't do it, not a big deal. But it's kind of fun just to see the ages of kiddos that everybody has when we're here together. Here we go. Perfect. Welcome everybody. I see people popping in. Suzanne, I think I'm going to turn off my video.
Okay.
There's a presentation before, but I'll be here listening and watching. And then if you need me to flip the screen, let me know.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay.
Melinda? Wait, Melinda, are you there?
yeah,
Do you, Jade need the screen, do you know? Does she have like?
I don't think so.
Okay. Okay. So
Yeah,
I think
it'll just be a verbal presentation.
Okay, perfect. That's great. Thanks.
Mhm.
Good morning, everybody. It's nice to see everyone popping in. Hi, Simona.
Hey.
I'm glad it's the weekend.
Yeah.
I don't know, although going back to, on-campus learning, we don't get to sleep in a little bit later anymore.
Yeah, everything has its trade-offs, right? I'll take it.
Yeah, no, I know, but the 7:30 wake-up time is kind of nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you on that, but I don't know. I kind of like the alternative.
Yeah, no. Definitely. Morning, Eric.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Hello, Melissa. Bonjour. Thank you for being with us this morning.
Yeah, bonjour. Comment allez-vous?
Je vais très, très bien.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
All right. Well, Melinda, you know if Jade is ready? Is she?
Well, we gave her the link, but like I said, she's having to probably pop out of the classroom. So I can, were you gonna like do a little welcome or anything, or?
I can. I just was gonna do it whenever you think you're.
I'm just looking at the participant list to see if she pops in.
Yeah. All right. Well, morning, Heidi. Maybe I'll give her one more minute or so and then we'll just get rolling. Right. Okay, well, maybe Linda, if I get started, you have an introduction too, you said?
Yes.
Okay. Well, with that, maybe we'll just get this ball rolling. I'm really excited and happy to have everybody here. We're going to have a short presentation from Melinda, who is on our Solidaire committee, along with one of our faculty, Jade Scheinwald, and about a new community service endeavor that they're undertaking. So they're going to give us a very brief presentation about that, and then we will turn the ball over to Melissa Benaroya. She's gonna give us this wonderful session on emotional coaching, which I think is very timely, at least for my family, and I'm assuming for everyone else. But I just a quick shout out to Liz Foley. She's a new parent here at the school with a son in 6th grade, and she has very kindly sponsored Melissa to give us this wonderful session with her.
Cute.
So just wanted to
Liz
say
did that.
thank you to her for this kind offer. It's really fantastic. So I'm excited to see everybody that can log on and take advantage of this opportunity. So with that, I will roll over to Melinda.
Non, tu te mets ici, je veux te
Get us started
Je vais t'aider.
with the,
Non, je vais t'aider.
oh, somebody is not muted. But anyway, Melinda, you want to take it away?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to the FPC for carving out a few minutes of the coffee this morning.
What was it?
Yeah, it's good.
What was it called?
Promising young woman.
Promising what?
Young woman.
All right.
Elisa, can you mute your mic, please?
It's not me, it's somebody that is viewing, but we don't see their screen. I'm not exactly sure who it is speaking in the background.
Yeah, and Melinda, I accidentally muted you when I was trying to figure out. Can you unmute, Melinda? Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
Trying to go through and see what was going on. Sorry.
That's all right. No worries. So I'm one of the co-chairs of Solidaire, the FPC Community Service Committee, and we are kicking off an effort to work with the Homeless Organizing Community Seattle organization. It is a group that actually one of our faculty members, Jade Scheinwald, is very active in. And this month on January 26th, we put together a sack lunch effort. And basically, my understanding is I think Jade maybe wasn't able to join because of work, but this group works with specific encampments in Seattle mostly. And what we are going to be doing later this month is we're preparing sack lunches. Families have already signed up. Thank you to everybody who signed up, by the way. It was a rather moderate effort. We started out with just 35 lunches for this event. We actually filled up within a couple of days. So we were really, really thankful and appreciative for the support. And we will likely be discussing continuing to hold this on a monthly basis. So basically, my understanding is that HOCS, the Homeless Organizing Community Seattle, works with specific encampments to, on different levels, to work with them on providing support with basic needs, whether it's things like food, shelter in the encampments. And you know, with this weather, it's very, very tough conditions. And then also moving up, supporting them with maybe other needs that they need, I believe, as far as like healthcare and transitioning to stable housing. And so our group has always tried to find opportunities that our entire community could really connect with and participate in. And it's been tough because we have our very, very young children all the way up to 8th grade. And a lot of times our opportunities are limited because of it. But in this sense, we thought that, you know, this is, being houseless is something that is pretty much front and center whenever you leave the house. A lot of times you see people all the time, and it's just something that we thought that it fit for our community. It really, we thought that because we also have Jade, who is very active with this group, that she would be a great liaison to really explain things to us. And
Yes, hi, I'm here and I'm so very sorry that I'm late. There was a little bit of connection issues, Melinda.
okay, but I'm going to switch off because I was just kind of doing some basics. I think we have a few more minutes where you could talk about HOCS and the work that you do. And that would be great. Thanks, Jade. I'm muting now.
Absolutely. And again, I am so very sorry to keep you all waiting. That was definitely not my intention. And so I will quickly do my elevator pitch now. So I became aware of HOS, which is an acronym for Homeless Organizing Community Seattle, in June of 2020. So I recently just became involved with the organization myself. And I actually found them on a Facebook group. It was founded by 2 employees from Facebook who are just regular guys, basically. And they noticed that a lot of outreach services had stopped due to the pandemic. And they just felt responsible as citizens of Seattle, essentially, to provide more service to the affected members of our community who live in housing insecurity. This is not a nonprofit. I want to make that clear, and that's by design. The mission of HCOS is really to empower members of our community to be able to interact with the service in a way that is comfortable for them. So there's a lot of different ways people can become involved. But HOCS does work with Northwest Hospitality, which is a nonprofit in the area that services underprivileged community members. So I thought that it would be an interesting idea to present to our community just the work that I do on the weekends, just seeing how very little donations can really change somebody's week or month even. And I just want to say thank you to Melissa and Sonia and everyone for being open to this kind of opportunity. And I want to at least leave 30 seconds or a minute to answer a question, but there was one question that I received that I do want to touch upon really, really quick. And that question was centered around how HCOS interacts with the idea of ending homelessness if that's not our goal or our mission. And I just want to clarify that a little bit. Of course, we want to see people get off the street. Of course, we want people to find stable and secure housing. That absolutely is part of our mission. But because we are just a group of volunteers around the city, most of us just have basic de-escalation training. Some of us do have backgrounds in social work, but most of us are just community members. And obviously, ending homelessness is kind of this huge, complex, really big idea. And so that's why we focus on making more micro changes within the community, providing people with food security, providing people with water, hygienic products, propane gas so that they can keep their generators going in the winter since it's very, very cold, things of that nature. So
Thank
I
you,
am going to
Jade.
hand it over now.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you for popping in. We're going to keep it really, really short. So from here forward, I will put my email address and Sonia's email address. If you have any questions, please send them to us directly. We have put some current information up on the Solidar page on MyFast that you can take a look at and see if those also answer any questions for you. Thank you again to our wonderful community for participating and supporting this effort. Thank you to Jade for taking some time away from your day.
Thank you to the community so much. I think that this is a great initiative.
Great. Thank you both. I appreciate you popping on and sharing that with us, and yeah, sharing that great idea and initiative with our community. And so hopefully, you know, it's something we can all participate in easily and make a difference. So with that, I'm going to roll it over to Melissa and let her get started.
All right. Turn on my video here. Hi there, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I see we have about 34 people. Unfortunately, I can't see you all, but I can see your participant name. And so I asked earlier on, and we'll go back to this, but if you can rename yourself and include your name and the ages of your kiddos, that would be great. And you can do that by going to the participants box, clicking on yourself, it'll say rename, and then you can throw your name and the ages of your kids there. So this morning is a wonderful opportunity for us to connect and for me to share a little bit with you about Dr. Gottman's emotion coaching. We only have an hour together this morning, so I'm going to do my best to cram as much as possible in the small window of time I have with you. I typically spend about 2.5 hours on this topic, but I think you will be able to get a great taste and sense of what emotion coaching looks like and how to use the framework when working with your kiddos. I want to thank Suzanne and Liz and Eric and everybody that made this possible. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here with you today. Liz and I have talked about it for some time now, so I'm just really excited to be here. So many of you probably don't know who I am. I do live on Mercer Island, so I may have seen some of you in the neighborhood, but I am a licensed clinical social worker, so I'm a therapist, but I practice solely as a parent coach. So I have a private practice where I work with parents. I do a lot of teaching and speaking in the community. You'll see things I write in Parent Map or interviews on the news. I'm kind of all over the place. I spend a lot of time in schools talking to groups like you, but I also talk to larger corporations and organizations like Starbucks, Nestle, Entrepreneurs Organization. I feel really passionately about that because working parents, especially in this pandemic, are totally challenged and overwhelmed. So I'm really pushing employers to offer parenting support in the workplace. And I love just in Seattle in general, schools are really committed to providing parent education for their parents. So I think we're actually really well covered here in our city, but working with working parents. And I know a handful of you had mentioned earlier this morning, like, hey, I'm at work right now, so I'm not going to turn on my video and audio. And that's perfect. I'm just thrilled that you can be here with us. So that's a little bit on me. I always fail to mention that I also have a family that I get to practice everything I preach with. So I have a 14 and a 16-year-old here at the school on Mercer Island. And they are really my greatest teachers. So I usually bring a lot of them into my presentations. As I had mentioned before, it'd be great. We don't have a lot of opportunity for introductions here. I'd love to get to know all 33 of you. So if you can at least change your name and add the ages of your kids, so we kind of get a general sense of who is here, that would be great. And you can do that through the participants box, clicking rename and adding that in. But I'd love to also have many of you respond if you have the ability, just to get an even deeper sense of here. So I typically do something called a stand up activity where I share a statement, and if it applies to you, you stand up and then sit down and I ask another statement. But I think for the sake of Zoom and being here together digitally, I'll ask questions and then I'll ask you to type in the chat me or I do, so we just kind of know how many of us are in a certain space. So I'm curious, how many of you have kiddos in the preschool to first age group? So if you have a kiddo that's in first kindergarten, preschool, first grade, type I do. Great. Handful. Okay, we got lots of parents of itty bitties. Oh, awesome. And how many of you have the elementary school age kids? So let's say second grade to fifth grade. How many of you have? Great. Awesome. Handful. Okay, so we're pretty well balanced. And how many of you have middle school or high school kiddos? Type me. Middle school or high school? Awesome. Yeah, great. So we have a great mix of people here. I'm curious. Oh, awesome. Tons.
Melissa, excuse me to interrupt you. I just want to make sure that everybody understands that it is being recorded right now, right? So
Oh, thank you. Yes. Yep. And I am going to get to that. So thank you for reminding me, Eric. I appreciate it. Yes, we are being recorded. My hope is that I can get the replay to all of you by Monday morning. And those of you that weren't able to attend will be able to enjoy this information as well. So curious, how many of you are familiar with John Gottman's work in emotion coaching? If you are, type I am. How many of you are familiar? He wrote a book called Raising an Emotionally Intelligent Child. Sometimes he comes to speak around town. Okay, good. So several of you are familiar with his work. How many of you think parenting is easy? Anybody? I do. Anybody say I do to parenting is easy? No problem. Got it handled. Okay, no, not easy. Okay, perfect. Usually there's somebody and I offer them to come up and share their secrets with us, but okay, nope, not easy. How many of you would like to replicate the way that you were parented and raised? If that applies to you, type I would. Anybody want to replicate the way they were raised and parented? Robert's very clear now. Mostly, not all. Thank you, Edie. Yeah. Regardless of how you were parented or raised, how many of you know that your parents were doing the best they could and they were doing it out of love? It might have not felt that way at the time, but in reflection, however they parented you, whatever discipline style they had, they were doing their best and they were doing it out of love. Yes. And I think we're all in that same boat too. And we have the benefit in our age that we have more information and research on parenting and relationships in the last 10 years than had been produced 100 years prior. So we have so much information. Previous generations had like one guy called Dr. Spock, and like he was the guy and that was it. And I think he was basing it on his own experiences and not necessarily science and evidence-based research. So we have a lot of resources for us. So I just want to kind of get a general sense of who is here. And I just want to acknowledge that you are not alone here and you are in good company. So before I continue, I do want to let you all know that there is a handout that complements today's talk. You don't need it right now, but if you want to pull it up, I think Suzanne's gonna put it in the chat so you don't have to type all this. And that'll be coming up in just a moment, but there is a handout. And when you get the replay, there will also be a link to the handout there for you to download that. And to Eric's point, yes, we are being recorded. And I just want to acknowledge that we are a small community and some people may share something really personal. So I just ask that we create a safe space where people can share and keep confidentiality because this is a space to share some personal things about our parenting and our children. So how many of you feel like this is kind of your daily life weekend? Or maybe this is your morning routine before everybody heads off to school or starts their Zoom. Or maybe you have moments like this more often than you'd like. And at the end of the day, you're just kind of feeling like this. Anybody? Any of these pictures resonate with you and where you're at during this crazy pandemic? As if parenting wasn't hard enough, we have all of these challenges that are totally out of our control and so much that's out of our children's control. So once again, you are not alone. You are in the right place today and you are in good company. So today's topic is emotion coaching. And why are we talking about emotion coaching? Well, first of all, you showed up because you care about your children and how you parent them and how you raise them. And emotion coaching is a great parenting tool to work with your child. It can help make parenting feel easier and lighter, and at the same time, build a strong connection with your child. So it's a very evidence-based process. I'm going to talk about emotion coaching kind of in two ways. Number one is a parenting style, and we'll talk about the 4 different parenting styles that Gottman has identified, but I also use it as a parenting tool. I've had a conversation with him. He doesn't necessarily see it as a parenting tool. It's a framework for problem solving, but I think it's a really effective parenting tool that we can use with our kiddos. Our kids are born with a full range of emotions, and they need to have the opportunity to express that. And many of them are very good at it, but not necessarily expressing their emotions in positive, safe ways. So we're going to work on how can we support our children in better understanding how they're feeling and better express themselves in positive, safe ways. Okay, so this is what we're going to hit today. Like I said, I usually cover this in 2.5 hours, and we got this tiny little window, but I want to introduce as many pieces to you as possible. So we're going to start first talking about creating a greater awareness around emotions and feelings. I'll share with you the 4 different Gottman parenting styles. Then we'll introduce the 5 steps of emotion coaching. So that's the framework. That 5th step of emotion coaching, it's not really a 5-step process, because that last step has its own 5 steps, and that's the 5 steps of problem solving. So I'm going to go through each of these. If you have questions, please unmute yourself. I'm going to ask that if you have questions during the presentation, that they're clarifying questions. So if I'm going too fast or it doesn't make sense to you, please stop me by all means. But if you have other questions that are not necessarily related to this or apply maybe specifically to your child, please save that till the end. And I'm going to stick around and answer all the questions that are here. But because we have limited time, I want to save most of those questions for the end. So I'm curious, why do you all think we have emotions? What purpose do they serve? Why are they important? What do they do? Anybody have, feel free to type it in the chat. What purpose do emotions serve? How are they helpful? Are they helpful? And this can be a tricky question because we don't necessarily think about these things too often.
Allez-y, vous pouvez y aller.
I think we have somebody that needs to be muted. Okay. Keep away from danger. Okay, great. Yeah, so they can keep us safe. Absolutely. Great. Anything else? I want to give you just a second to think deeply about this. Help us interact with others. Beautiful. Yes. Yeah. So there's really, I use the 3 C's for thinking about the purpose of emotions. And emotions serve as an opportunity to connect with others. We as humans are social animals, and we connect through shared emotions and shared experiences. Our brains are actually wired this way. We have these things called mirror neurons in our brains, and they replicate the state and the emotions of others. That's why when your kid just totally flips out, all of a sudden you feel that same state of frustration, anger, anxiety, whatever they're experiencing, we experience it because our mirror neurons are firing off and replicating each other's state. So really important way of creating connections. It's also a tool to communicate, right? It shows others kind of where we're at, how we're feeling, kind of what state we're in. So it's a great tool for communication. And like you were saying, keep away from danger, right? There's a tool there that it communicates. And lastly, it creates meaning. Without the application of feelings and emotions, there really is no meaning to everyday interactions and situations. So meaning is created through our emotions. And emotions are so important, and many times they cause a lot of problems in parenting. And so I think that being mindful of how we express emotions is really important because we are modeling for our kids every minute of the day. And I want to demonstrate this with all of you really quickly. So I'm going to ask those of you, if you can turn on your camera, that would be fantastic. We're going to do like a 30-second exercise together. If you can flip on that camera, go ahead and do that now. And I'm going to ask all of you to make this okay sign, just like this, like the picture you see. Everybody hold up their okay sign there. Yep, I see that. Thank you. And what I want you to do with your okay sign is I want you to stick it on your chin just like this and hold it there. Go ahead. Stick it on your, yep. Okay, great. So can anybody remember what I just asked you to do? Go ahead and unmute yourself or type it in the chat. What did I just ask? Anybody? Put it on your chin. Yes, thank you, Suzanne. I said, put it on your chin. And all the people that I could see in their Zoom boxes went right to their cheek. So what's more powerful, what we say or what we do? We are modeling this all day long for kids. We're not only modeling what emotions look like, but we're also modeling our attitudes and preferences towards emotions. So our kids are deciding about themselves and their emotions because we have certain attitudes and beliefs. And sometimes it's positive emotions are good and negative emotions are bad. But the reality is they're all just normal. We need that full spectrum. I pulled this little girl off the, actually off the Facebook. I saw this and I thought it was perfect. It says the attitude that you have as a parent is what your kids will learn from more than what you tell them. They don't remember what you try to teach them. They remember what you are. So if you're driving down East Mercer Way, trying to get to the French American school as fast as you can, and somebody cuts you off and you get really angry, maybe scream at them, call them a name, that's what the person in the back seat is learning what anger looks like, right? So one of the most powerful tools is just turning inward and noticing, how am I showing up? How am I modeling this for our kiddo? So most powerful parenting tool is right here. So it's really important that we focus on regulating our emotions and expressing them in healthy ways, because we can't expect our kids to do it if we don't do it. So any thoughts or questions just in general about emotions, the importance of emotions, teaching emotions, anything? And feel free to unmute yourself. I'll give you a sec. Okay. Pretty simple, pretty explanatory. So let's talk really quick about the different parenting styles. Now, different philosophies and approaches and discipline approaches have different names for parenting styles, and I'm sure you've heard a bunch. Gottman has his own just based on his observation of parents. And I'm just going to quickly, I usually show a video here because I think it's nice to see and hear what it looks and sounds like, but I'm just going to introduce you to them very quickly. So one is the disapproving parenting style, and the disapproving parenting style, the parent tends to use discipline and punishment with behaviors that are associated with an emotion. So kids get in trouble for crying. You know, if you don't stop crying, we're leaving the park. So we are punishing a child for an emotion, and kids tend to learn not to trust their feelings. They tend to keep their feelings in, and it tends to create a lot of anxiety in young children. And as they get older, what they've seen is these kiddos tend to have anger management issues, not spending a lot of time there. Also, the dismissive parenting style. These parents really value positive emotions, and they don't believe their child has a reason to really be sad or upset. They just want them to be happy. So when a child is crying and is feeling really terrible, parent just goes in there to cheer them up. Here, have a lollipop, sweetie. It's going to be okay. It's fine. Instead of acknowledging how that child's feeling. So kids, once again, don't learn to trust their emotions and tend to be very confused about what they're feeling and how to express it. The laissez-faire parenting style is a parent that acknowledges all of their child's emotions and feelings. They're there, they reflect. The one problem with the laissez-faire parent has is they miss the opportunity for teaching and coaching in that moment. They don't set limits on behaviors. So these kids have a hard time regulating themselves. They have a hard time making friends and keeping friends, and a hard time focusing as well. So they feel heard and understood, but they also feel like anything goes, right? They can't regulate their emotions very well. And then of course, there's the emotion coaching parent. And these parents acknowledge that children have a full gamut of emotions. They accept all of their emotions. They listen deeply to their child. They empathize, and they help to problem solve around their child's challenges by first starting with setting limits. That limit is really an important piece of the emotion coaching style. Kids that grow up in a home where there's emotion coaching learn to trust their feelings, have a more positive self-concept of themselves. They actually are healthier physically. They have lower stress hormones. They recover from stressful situations much faster. They have fewer colds and flus. There's a big bonus right there. So there's a lot of benefits to emotion coaching with our kids beyond them learning the skills, feeling heard, and creating the connection with their parent of mutual trust and respect. But I'm somebody that's in the background there. So as you can see, we can parent on a spectrum, and we don't all just fall in one box. Dr. Gottman talks about these styles, and we usually go through an exercise identifying your style. But I think most families and individuals find that they might show up in one or two boxes, and sometimes it's different because of circumstances. So just wanted to give you the opportunity to see and hear a little bit about the different types of parenting styles, but we're just going to focus on the emotion coaching parent today. So I'm going to walk you through, like I said, the 5 steps of emotion coaching and the 5 steps of problem solving. But before we do that, I think it's really important and helpful to acknowledge when emotion coaching is not appropriate. It's not appropriate in all situations. And Dr. Gottman says that in order to be a emotion coaching parent, you only have to do this about 40% of the time. So this is not appropriate in all situations. Hopefully you have a parenting toolbox to draw from. So something else may be more appropriate than having this conversation. But I just want to do a few rule outs of when not to use it, because I usually hear a what about, what about, what about. So when you're in a hurry and you don't have time to stop and maybe have a 5-minute conversation with your child, not a great time. That doesn't mean you can't have the conversation. It's perfectly acceptable to have that conversation in the car or at bedtime tonight. It's going to be just as powerful and effective having it later. So if you're in a hurry, not a great time. If you're not alone is another thing to be mindful of, because sometimes kids don't really feel comfortable having these conversations in front of other people, even if it's their grandparents. You probably have a much more intimate and close relationship with your parents than maybe your child does. They might just come visit once a year. So to them, it might not feel so comfortable. So just being mindful of who's around in the environment is really helpful. I know for myself, I have a scenario in my head where I had taken my oldest when he was 5 to one of those pump it up birthday parties. I know they're not happening this year, but many of you are probably familiar with these pump it up jumpy places. And something happened with my kiddo and a few other kiddos, and all the parents, are standing around making sure everybody's safe. And I see something happen, so I step in and I was going to help problem solve. But my kid looked like a deer in headlights when he saw me coming. So that was the clue. Okay, not an emotion coaching time. And we had a conversation later in the car, and I let him just try to figure it out with the friends at the time. So being mindful of who's around. Obviously, safety is an issue. That's what we deal with. So if it's a very serious situation or safety, that's what we tend to. We don't have a emotion coaching conversation. Just noticing our emotional state in the moment. If we are feeling angry, frustrated, anxiety, we're not going to be productive. We're not going to have access to our rational brain because we're in that fight or flight situation. So we want to just be mindful of how am I feeling right now? And if I can use my self-soothing skills of maybe taking some cleansing breaths or stepping out of the room and then coming back, that's great. But noticing if I'm too upset right now about what happened, or I'm feeling a strong emotion, that's probably not a great time to have an emotion coaching conversation, because we don't tend to be as effective. And many times we regret some of the things that we say or we do when we're in that state. Lastly, and I'm sure you've all seen this, when the child's emotion doesn't match the situation, and that's usually because of one of two things. Number one, we have a child that is very tired, that they didn't get a lot of sleep last night, or they woke up super early. So that is really exacerbating their emotional state. So that might not be a great time to have a conversation. Or we have a child that's really hungry or hangry, and just noticing kind of like, what are the circumstances here and what might be influencing this emotion. So just being tuned in to our child's state and whether it's actually a true emotion or a tired or hungry child. So those are all the things that I would rule out as situations where we do not want to emotion coach. Anybody have any questions about when not to emotion coach? Okay, great. Well, thank you for letting me know, Kimiko, that you have to jump out. Appreciate that. We are gonna go, I was told I get an hour, so we're gonna go till about 10:30. So we still have a little bit of time. So I wanna walk you through each of the steps. Each of the steps are very simple steps. It's the application that tends to be a little bit more challenging. Many times as parents, we think we know what happened, we know the solution, it's very easy, it comes to us much easier than it does our kids, but slowing things down and going through each of these steps is really, really important. So the first step, and you'll notice that the first few steps, we're not actually doing a lot or even saying anything. So this first step of emotion coaching is just being aware of our child's lower intensity emotions. So noticing that furrowed brow or the, right? So tune into some of these nonverbal cues that might indicate something's going on with our kiddo. So emotion coaching parents are really tuned in not only to their own emotions and their emotional state, but the emotional state of their child before they escalate, right? Because when our kid has flipped their lid, we're not going to be able to have an emotion coaching conversation in that moment either. So being tuned into lower intensity emotions is the whole first step. The second step is recognizing this as an opportunity to connect and teach our child. Many times, especially when we're in public and our child is behaving in a way that we do not appreciate, and maybe we are aware that others are looking, or there's a big emotion, we kind of look through a lens of fear and judgment. And our reaction is many times like, shut this down, stop it, let's get out of here, move on. And I'm going to suggest that we shift that lens. And instead, in that moment, watch that kid melting down in the middle of Bellevue Square Mall, and instead see before you a gift. The gift of connecting with your child and teaching your child. Because I'm sure you've heard it before, our kids need us the most when they are at their worst. These are the moments where you actually get to build your relationship with your child based on mutual trust and respect. So the outside world, we need to tune out and focus on the opportunity that is before us, because this is the moment where we get to teach our child. This is the moment where we get to connect with our child, and we can either embrace that or let that go. But I'm going to suggest shifting the lens. So the second step is just putting on this lens of the beautiful gift that's before you. And that itself is a practice. That's not easy to do. So that's the whole second step. We haven't really said anything just yet, have we? So, okay, those are the three pieces of this new lens. The third step, oops, I got ahead of myself, is listening empathetically and validating our child's thoughts and feelings. So before we jump into this problem-solving conversation, we need to give our child a voice to feel heard and understood. They're going to be more invested in problem-solving with us if they feel heard. So in this third step, you might say something as simple as, hey, what's going on? Or, hey, what just happened? right? So we give them the space to tell their story, allow them to tell their story. We may have missed something, especially when you have two kiddos and there's an interaction going on. We may think we know what happened, but it may be very different. So if we're doing one-on-one with a child, giving them the space to tell their story. And if we have two different children in the scenario or a classroom of children, we give everybody the chance to feel heard and have their story heard. And so when they share with us, then we reflect back, we paraphrase what it is we heard from them, or maybe we empathize with them, like, oh, it's so hard when you really wanted the toy, or you really wanted to join that game, and there was, no more room for more kids to play in the game, right? So we are just reflecting back what it is so our child feels heard and understood. The next step, this is where we get to the emotions. So here we want to help, and I underline the word help, our child label their own emotion. So instead of saying like, oh, you're really sad or you're disappointed, it's much more helpful to say something like, wow, you look or you sound, or even, older kids, like, how did you feel when that happened? And how were you feeling when that happened? So giving them the opportunity to explore how they were experiencing that situation. What was their emotional reaction to that? Now, if you have little guys that don't have the breadth of vocabulary related to emotions, this might be a great opportunity to offer some choices. So were you really sad or were you frustrated in that moment? So we can offer some emotional vocabulary there to help them. A lot of kids will grab on to one word to identify lots of different emotions, but it's so much more powerful to have a word than to act out emotions. And really little kids, their communication style is through their behaviors. So here we're giving them a new skill to express themselves verbally. So those are the first 4 steps. I want to just pause for a second and see if there are any questions on any of those. So I'll flip back really quickly. The first step is, let me just pull it up. So just being aware of those lower intensity emotions. The second one is recognizing this opportunity as this gift before us to connect and teach. The third step is listening by asking them what just happened or what's going on, giving them space to tell you how they view the situation. And the fourth step is helping them label their own emotion. I have a question. Is this advice the same for children who are still not very verbal? Yes. So I don't know when you asked that, but we can start building this in to the way we interact with our kids. They might not be verbal, but they're picking up, they're learning, they understand a whole lot more than we give them credit for. So they're picking up on this. I think as parents, if you have a nonverbal child, a really young child, this is just a great opportunity for you to start practicing in probably a less stressful moment and state. So when you really do need some of these steps or just the framework to problem solve, you'll have access to it and they'll be used to some of this dialogue. But if you have a really little itty bitty, it's going to be you kind of talking to yourself or acknowledging like, oh, you looked really frustrated. So you looked very, very frustrated is very different than you are frustrated right now, because when I say something like you're frustrated or you're angry, I'm telling you how you feel. Nobody likes to be told how they feel. So the look or you sound is many times a better way of letting them know, I see you, I'm noticing this about you. Sometimes we need to give them time before getting into these steps. Absolutely, Eric, absolutely. So that's why we don't have to do it in the moment. Or if they're escalated and they need to calm down, then we create that space for that to happen and we can reconnect later. I know for me, my youngest is the kid that when he blows up, he needs to just go away. Like he doesn't want to sit and have a conversation. He goes away and eventually he comes back and then we can have a conversation. So he regulates on his own away. My other kid needs somebody there to help them regulate themselves. So all of our children are really different, and just being tuned into what does your child need to be able to be present and have the conversation. So thank you for mentioning that. What if your child doesn't want to talk? Thinking about teenagers. Yeah. So there may be a situation where a teenager is just not ready to talk. Great, no problem. We'll have this conversation later. Not a big deal. So maybe we wait until there's a time and space where things feel a little bit more positive. This isn't like you're in trouble. This is like, hey, let's just figure out what happened and how we can do it different. Like, it wasn't fun for me. I know you weren't happy with how things ended up. So let's figure this out together. So it's a very collaborative approach to working with children. The more that they are involved in the process, the more they're going to be invested in using these skills and solving the problems. Yes, I have teenagers, and I know there are times they are not interested in having the conversation, and that's perfectly okay. That doesn't mean I can't bring it up again later. And usually later, when things are more positive, definitely more open to having conversations. All right, so now I'm going to move on to that 5th step of emotion coaching. And that 5th step is setting the limit and problem solving. And it has, like I said, its own 5 steps. So this is really the meat of the dialogue. First 4 steps is really an opportunity to connect. We have to connect before we correct or redirect. If we don't create that space for connection, we're not going to be able to have the dialogue. So connection is key. So like with the teenager, if we're not feeling connected right now, we're not going to be able to have that conversation. So the first piece of that is setting the limit. And I like to use one-liners just to keep things simple. So in setting the limit, we acknowledge the emotion or the desire. It's okay to feel blank. It's not okay to do blank. It's okay to be frustrated with your friend. It's not okay to throw the toy across the room, right? So we are setting limits on the behavior while first acknowledging the emotion or the desire. It's okay to want to play with your friends and join the game. It's not okay to try to break it up because there's not room for one more person. So setting the limit is the first piece. The second piece is identifying their goal or motivation. So once again, we may think we know what they wanted or what they needed, but this is a space for us to get really clear, because what we don't want to do is we don't want to problem solve for the wrong problem. So maybe when you asked what happened, this may have bubbled up previously in that 3rd step, but we may need to circle back and say, what did you really want? And maybe it was, I wanted my friend Jenny to come play with me, but she was playing with the group. So it wasn't she wanted to join the group. She wanted Jenny to come play with her, right? So asking like what it is, what did you want? What did you need? All behavior is purposeful. So it's important that we put on our detective hats and try to get underneath what we saw on the surface, because what we see on the surface isn't really necessarily what's there and what the issue is. So just asking, what did you want? What did you need? Why did you do that? Helping them to get clear. And really young children, many times aren't even aware of it. And so this will help them to become more conscious of what was driving their behavior in that moment. So once it's clear what they wanted or needed or what the problem was, that's when we do some brainstorming. Okay. And ideally, we want them to come up with the ideas. We may have really great ideas. We may know what works really well. Much more powerful for our kids to come up with ideas. So asking things like, well, what's another way to get Jenny to leave the game and come play with you? What else could you have tried? Older kids can many times answer that question, and sometimes they answer it like really thoughtfully and have some great ideas. Sometimes they're not great ideas, but this is a brainstorming session, so there's no bad ideas just yet. So we want to create a list of 2 or 3 ideas. Now, if your kiddo is younger and they don't necessarily have access to those ideas, we can coach them a little bit. We can say things like, do you want to know what other kids do when they want their friend to leave a game and come play with them? Or the really little ones who love Daniel Tiger, I've been told, well, what would Daniel Tiger do in that situation? Or they love hearing about you as a little kid. You want to hear what when I was a little girl and my best friend was playing with some other kids, do you want to hear what I did? Or even more powerfully, we can direct them back to a time they've been successful. Remember last week when you had a few kids over for a play date and you wanted to change the game? What did you say to your friends in that situation? So we can lead them back to another time where they were successful in navigating a similar situation. So we get to a place where we have 2 or 3 ideas. We want to have at least one decent idea on that list. If not, we'll kind of keep brainstorming a little bit. So we have a few ideas before us. Okay, those are all interesting ideas. Let's spend a minute thinking about how each of those would go. You and I think through consequences of choices and actions that we take. Kids don't necessarily connect the dots right away like we do. So we need to help walk them through this process of connecting the dots. So we just ask, okay, your first idea was going up and saying, hey, Jenny, why don't you come play with me and leave them? They're stupid. Okay, well, how would that go? How would Jenny feel? What would the other friends say and do, right? So we can walk them through like, what would happen if you tried that? Okay. Jenny might be embarrassed and the friends might be angry with you. Okay. What's another thing you could do? I could go up and tap her on the shoulder and whisper in her ear, I really want you to come play with me. So that's another idea. How would that go? So we kind of walk them through each of these ideas that they've brainstormed. Some of the ideas they come up with may not align with your family's values. So you might want to point that out. You know what? One of our family values or one of our family rules is being respectful of others. Was that respectful of your friend or the group of friends? So we're just helping our kids evaluate some of the ideas. After we've gone through that evaluation process, that last step is simply letting them choose. Even if they choose a choice that's not necessarily going to be successful or we're not convinced is going to go really well, that's okay. Because that's just another opportunity for kids to learn from their choices and actions. And sometimes we just need to go back and start this conversation over. Well, tell me what happened. How did that feel, right? So we can just loop right back around. So I really quickly, very quickly, condensed the emotion coaching conversation for all of you. My hope is that you take 1 or 2 pieces of this and add to the conversations that you're already having with your kiddos. The expectation is like, okay, you got to hit point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, go through the whole framework. That is ideal, but that's not always the case. And you may be doing a lot of these things already with your kiddos. So I'd love for you to take a moment to think about what steps do I typically miss that could be helpful. What I typically hear is it's some of those first 4 steps, that connection piece. So take a minute and think about what step could I add into my problem-solving conversations with my kiddo? And then I'd love for you to share it in the chat. And by sharing it in the chat, it increases the likelihood that you're actually going to do it. Because when you state it out loud publicly, it reinforces it. So just take a second and share one of this, either the 5 steps of emotion coaching or the 5 steps of problem solving. Just 1 or 2 pieces. That's all I hope that I can share with all of you here today. And if you have questions, I'm happy to take those questions as well, because I realize that I only have 5 minutes left. My 6-year-old does not like to express his feelings. I think it could be he knows those emotions are negative feelings and does not want to be vulnerable. What should I do? Great question. With young kids, I think one of the best things that we can do is, number 1, model these emotions for them. Don't hide crying or anger. They need to see it and normalize it. And I think building a library of books that are focused on emotions can be really powerful. So one great book that I absolutely love is called How Are You Peeling? And it's a beautiful, it's a book of pictures, like actual photographs of fruits and vegetables that have faces on them. And it's very clear how all of these different emotions are showing up. It also helps us as parents to build and expand our emotional vocabulary, because our kids aren't just like happy, sad, or mad all the time. So helping build that vocabulary and normalizing, other kids' experience of these emotions. So another great book is When Sophie Gets Angry, Really, Really Angry. That's a great book too, of seeing how what Sophie does when she explodes and she's angry and how she works with her parents. So what I will do is I will include a list of some of these books on the replay site in case any of you want to pick up some of those books to have with your kiddos. So number one, modeling it for your kids, acknowledging like, oh, it's okay to be frustrated, right? That limit setting is acknowledging the emotion. It is okay to be frustrated. It's not okay to kick the door though, right? So we are not dismissing their emotion. We are acknowledging it, but what they do with that emotion, we can set a limit on. 3 is my problem for coaching. So Robert is saying, listen empathetically and validate your child's thoughts and feelings. Yes, right? It's so hard to keep the mouth closed sometimes because we just like, okay, this is what you should have done. This is what you could have done, right? But there's so much value in helping a child feel heard and understood. That just reinforces the relationship, I'm guessing, that all of you want to create with your kiddos. I judge the emotion way too early. Yeah. So we're quick to do that. Good. Okay, you're welcome. Any other questions? Once again, I'd love for you all to put in the chat 1 or 2 of these steps that you would like to experiment with. You're not committing to do this, but what are you willing to experiment with over the next week or 2 based on the information that I shared with you today? So go ahead and include that. If you have the handout, it lists all the steps. I go into a little bit more detail and give you some ideas. Thank you, Tracy. Brainstorming solutions together with the child. Remember, not taking over, letting them come up with the ideas. They're going to be much more likely to follow through on those ideas if they came up with them themselves. And if something were to happen again in the future, the scenario plays out, we can just reference back. Remember that time you had that issue with Jenny on the playground? What did you say you were going to do in that situation, right? So we can loop them back to the idea that they came up with for themselves. Beautiful. So I'd love for you to take action and pick 2 or 3 of these steps just to add to your already existing problem-solving conversations with your kids. I know that you already do that. I have exactly 1 minute left, so I have something I want to share with you before we leave. I just want to acknowledge that emotion coaching is a framework for helping kids understand their emotions and problem solve. That's all it is. And once again, it's not appropriate in all situations. You have a parenting toolbox. I work with lots of parents on building that parenting toolbox. This is one tool, and I will acknowledge that this is a higher level parenting tool. It's much more rich and a deeper conversation than offering limited choices or lots of other things that we could do. So I don't tend to cover emotion coaching till the very end of my work with my private clients. So this isn't the first thing I spring on them. Acknowledging also, you are your child's most valuable teacher in life. So embrace these teaching moments. As you've heard before, it goes way too fast. My kid's leaving for college in a year. Like, what? My kid went to the preschool at the JCC next door, and that feels like yesterday. So embrace these moments. These are your opportunities to create the family that you want and the relationship you want with your kiddo. And remember that this is a journey. There's not a destination here. So enjoy this journey as much as possible. These tools and strategies are there to help you and support you through this journey. And we can acknowledge and embrace these moments, or we can ignore and deny them. But I think we'll all do much better when we embrace the gift of these big emotions and challenging behaviors. So 2 things I want to share with you. Number 1, if you want to contact me or you want more information or you want more tools, you can find me at melissabenaroya.com. I also wanted to share with you a free course I have on my childproof parenting site. So I have a bunch of courses that I've put online. And this is a free one. This is an email course. So it's a 7-day email course, and it reinforces and focuses on using empathy as a parenting tool. So the whole that's the entire course. It sounds crazy, but one of the things I hear from parents all the time is, I need to be more calm, I need to be more patient. And this is a great way to practice that and bring that into your parenting. And lastly, I also wanted to offer you the opportunity to get half off my childproof parenting course, which is typically when I do it in person is a 6 to 8 week course, but I also have a self-study online. So I created a code just for the French American School. So if you want to check it out, Suzanne has included the link in the chat here. I will also put it on the replay page. So feel free to check that out. But I just wanted to, I didn't get to give you a lot today. It was very condensed. So I just wanted to offer you some more information and resources there. So I hit it 10:31. I apologize. I went over by 1 minute. And I want you to know that I am going to stick around and answer any questions that you have. So feel free to unmute or chat me. I think because I have a co-host status, I can stay here and everybody else can leave if they want. So thank you, French American School. Thank you, Liz Foley, for making this possible. Thank you for Suzanne helping me this morning, and Eric being a great leader in the community. I appreciate being so welcomed here today, and I enjoyed the opportunity to chat with all of you. So thank you. All right. Bye. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Awesome. Excellent. Yeah. And I do have an emotion coaching course online as well. It's on the Childproof Parenting Teachable site. So it goes a little bit more in detail. So that is, if this is something you're like, wow, I really want to invest in this, you can get that there, but you will get the replay for this so you can revisit all the information. Great. Nice to see you, Simona. Thank you. Thank you, Cecile. Elizabeth, thank you so much. Brittany, thank you. Thank you all for coming. Catherine, nice to see you. Great. Thank you all. So I think there's only 16 of us left, and feel free to check out and move on with your day. It looks like there's sunshine outside, so try to absorb some vitamin D while you can. And like I said, I'll stick around. Thank you. Thanks, Eric. Thank you, Suzanne. Thanks for your help this morning. Thanks, Cecile. Just keeping my eye to see if anybody has anything in the chat or wants to unmute themselves. So feel free to unmute yourself if you want to chat. Great. All right, Robert, we can definitely chat. Anna or Allison, anything that I can do for you before you sign off this morning? And maybe you stepped away so you aren't aware that I'm talking to you right now. Awesome. Suzanne, anything that I can do to help you out before you sign off? You got on early this morning, so I don't want to keep you. Awesome. Great. Allison, love it. I'd love to know what specific step you're willing to take. But I love that you're motivated to practice some of them. So thank you. Excellent. All right. And Robert, I'm happy to stay and chat with you one-on-one. And so you can send me a private message. And as soon as everybody else is processed through and signed off, I'm happy to chat with you. Or if there's somebody else that wants to have a private chat, I know that sometimes we don't feel comfortable having these conversations in front of other parents, and that's perfectly fine too. So, right, perfect. Excellent. Thank you. Okay, bye, Allison. Suzanne, are you signing off now? I can't hear you. You're muted.
I can't, if I leave, are you still good to go?
If you made me co-host, I'm still here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm good. I don't want to keep you any longer than I need to. So thank you so much for all your help today.
It was really helpful, and it's nice just to see this stuff laid out, because, you know, the longer you're in it, sometimes you just forget to like go through the steps. Yeah. Sometimes you just get so pulled down by it all that you're just like, ah, you know. But it's
need reminders, right? That's stuff that like, it's not like something new that you've never heard of, but
Yeah.
just, you know, having a format or a framework can be helpful, and just being reminded of like, oh yeah, I don't do that so much. I don't listen as much as I probably should.
And my little two, they just bicker like all the time, and you just get so like, you know, at your limit that you're just like, stop. Just stop.
Totally. Totally. Well, that's why the Keep Calm course is really helpful.
Yeah, sure.
Check that out.
But
Thank
yeah,
you so much. Have a good day, Suzanne.
thank you, Melissa. I really appreciate it. It's been great.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Robert, it looks like it's just you and I here now. So if you want, feel free to unmute, or we can communicate over the chat. Okay, so we're going through a divorce and not yet in the school or life. Okay, it really makes, yes, absolutely. I work with lots of parents going through divorce or that have been divorced. Chat, I'm at work. Okay, I'm gonna sit down since we're chatting so I have access to my computer. Let me just move my camera down here. And I'll keep an eye as you type. Okay, so how can I be supportive? I'm just gonna, nobody else is here. I can see it's just you and I. So I can either type or verbally respond. Lower that. I'm working on two screens here. Okay, take your time. No problem.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, Robert.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect. I'm standing outside the building. So this is what I run into, and I've been trying to find the right person to go do counseling, but me and her have a divorce that finalized last February, right at the COVID time. And I lost my business, and currently, because of this whole thing, I finally found my place, remodeling, and started moving out. But um, me and her, we are fundamentally different people. She's very pessimistic, and I'm very optimistic, and it's really tearing my kid apart. I feel that, you know, I can turn on the video too. It's our kid started having behavioral issue that is kind of, he hit himself. He keep on calling himself he's the worst in the world, stuff like that. I have run into a few occasions that, you know, just very frustrated. I grew up in a family that is very strict in Chinese. So very strict and very like emotion is weakness.
Right.
That's how I raise, you know. If you cry because you're weak, you cry. You don't cry if you're weak. You don't cry if you're strong. So be strong and go to your room and figure it out. And that's how I raise.
Right.
She kind of the same way too, but I have argument with her because so since I am waiting for my place to be done, I'm still inside, but I feel I'm an outsider living in the house. The kid doesn't see this, but I see it myself with her. And the thing is this way is I always remind her, say, please not share your negativity with the kid because, you know, financials. First of all, he's 6. He doesn't have really the concept of money.
Right.
Being broke and being poor is something that a 6-year-old is very hard to understand. And she shared that a lot, and like when remodeling, for example, just a good example, when remodeling, she automatically, before the work been done, she already say, oh, it's going to be terrible. Nothing's going to go right. Everything's going to be terrible. I'm like, let's get it done first, and then we'll see how terrible it gets. But let's not be so terrible before it even happens. But it's her. I mean, I know her for 20 years now, and we've been married for 15, and we just got divorced, and I know her well. But so I want to ask you is if we can have a conversation with you and also help the kiddo, because I can see my son start on kind of losing the grip.
Right.
He's at an age that's really testing the limits, testing the authorities, and that we know that. But I can see that he is kind of like a human chain in the middle, that kind of yanking you side. And I tend to not to yank it, but it happens. And he really want us to be together, but I know that for us to, I'm not closing the door. I tell everybody, I'm not closing the door, but I think we need to shut the door temporarily to just cool down and then refocus.
Right.
Instead of we try to continuous moving a direction that's going to be sooner or later is going to explode.
Right.
So my question is, you are very good. I really hope we can have a continual conversations, maybe 3 of us on chats, on Zoom, or even face to face. And also, I like to have somebody that can have a conversation with Parker. My son is Parker, and kind of figure out him a little bit, because I'm losing grip. She is like she's be the parenting guru, telling me how wrong I am, but I'm like, no, hang on a second. I mean, we all have the 100% heart to get him, the best, but we have a difference on the base of parenting.
Right.
And the only way to get it is to have somebody, because you don't believe I know, and I don't believe you know enough, and somebody to be there to be kind of like a guideline that is where the direction should go, the pole that to reach. And I say, we cannot continue doing this, because by the time when he's 12 or 14, 16, you're going to lose grip. And I know, because I go through that. I am from a divorced parents, and my father left unexpectedly, and then it's a pretty ugly divorce. And I'm surprised I'm doing well. And when I'm 18 and 21, when I leave my country from Hong Kong here, when I'm 20, I look back, and at this time I look back on my life, I'm like, I can't believe I'm alive at that time, because I'm so terrible, it's not a good person. But I see, because I don't have parenting guidelines, guidance, and I don't want my son to go through that. Even though we are good people, both of us are good people, but I can see that the turning apart of different parenting philosophy and different parenting yanking a change between your kids is not going to help him. And the one that got hurt is going to be him. So that's why I'm here to talking to you.
Got it. Great. So the work that I do with parents, and what I'm hearing you're looking for, is somebody to help you get on the same page. Kind of that, having that third party, a neutral party, can help parents get on the same page. So you two may not be together, and I work with lots of parents some that are talking to each other, some that aren't. So in some situations, I work with the two parents together. In other situations, I work with them separately on the same things. So there's consistency between mom and dad in two different homes. So that's definitely something I do. I don't work with children though anymore. So I think that maybe some art therapy or play therapy, because he's 6, would be a great outlet for him, because he's got to process all of this too. Just kind of the whole situation of what's happened. And then it sounds like he's getting a lot of feedback from mom, a lot of feedback that's just not age appropriate, that he can't even really understand and is really confusing to him. So I think it'd be really helpful for him to have an outlet and build a relationship with another adult, a therapist, so he can start processing how he's feeling, and also help him better understand that he is not responsible at all for any of the things that have happened between his adults, right?
Yeah.
Many times
it's give you a good example. It's like Christmas. My philosophy to my kid is I buy you a toy, you pick a toy, you get a toy, you get a toy you like, that is Christmas. One toy. When you ask more than one, my answer is gonna be next Christmas. Your birthday is coming. And that's it, because it is what it is. But for her is, well, I don't have the money and this is not the time, and you already have one toy, but if you want a second one, is that because I can't afford it and not getting it? I'm like, why you share so much? It's just tell him no. Just say, you know what, here's what it is, it's 1 and 1 and your birthday is coming. You know what, when I don't want to use toy as an achievement goal, but I want to make toy to be not a reward, but it's because it will be chasing the toy. But once you get the toy, the kid's gonna change.
Right.
So I want it to be a look forward thing on a particular day. But hey, if you want a extra time to go out to bike, yeah, let's get the cursive done and then let's go. I mean, we bike further away. Let's go do that, and that's my philosophy. So
Yeah.
I think I really want her really jump on board to really talk about this, because I think it is important.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I'm happy, Robert, to send you information about how I work with parents.
Okay.
You can, if you go to the melissabenaroya.com website, there's more information there
Okay.
about coaching and how I work with families. So feel free to check that out.
Okay.
And if that resonates with both of you, reach out to me and we can schedule a time to meet. I
Okay.
generally meet with parents the first time for 2 hours. So it's a pretty lengthy first meeting. And then after that, I meet with parents just an hour each time. We
Okay.
generally see each other every other week. So it gives you
Okay.
time to process and apply some of the things that we worked on together.
Okay. Together or separate?
Well, it's up to you. It's up to you.
Together is better. Okay, personally, I think together is better.
Okay.
I do have to tell you that I actually gone for a marriage counseling before our divorce, and the outcome is pretty ugly. So I think we can talk more about this, how to approach it. But you are the person, so you tell us what to do. But I will talk to her tonight and see that we can set up a time together to meet, or individually first, or whatever. I think what happened last time is we throw the counselor a curveball, because when we show up, we start kind of argue in the session, and then it make it very complicated for the counselor to try to help, because there's like, okay, he almost have to say, okay, stop talking, so let the other talk, and you stop talking, and you stop rolling your eyes, like that.
Right. Yeah. So this is not going to be a he should, she said, I do this, you do that.
Okay.
And this is the reason I am a coach and not practicing as a therapist, because it's very directive, action-oriented, forward-thinking. We're not processing anything that happened yesterday or 5 years ago. That's not on the table. What's on the table is, how do we want to move forward? How do we want to parent our child? How do we want to collaborate with one another and get on the same page?
Okay.
So
that's a good idea. That's what we want. I think the past is already past, and forward is already determined how to go forward. So I think right now is helping our kid Parker to really how to flourish, because I think he's a very smart kid, but he is very emotional, and he is very he still try to learn how to control his emotion. It's kind of hard for him. He's 6 and he processing a lot, I can tell. And he is very, he got into the point that we are kind of a little worried, because he's very imaginative. It's good to have kids have imaginations, but he's starting to have friends showing up. He is, saving people's life in the middle of a parking lot and stuff like that, that we're like, who, where, who are you saving? But not like a superhero, but it's like I'm doing this and that at school. I'm like, I don't think that's true. And I'm kind of a little worried about that part of him.
Yeah, yeah. I think it'd be really helpful for him to have somebody to talk to.
Okay.
And at his age, that's why I brought up like play therapy or art therapy. That's a really great way to ease kids into a relationship with another adult that they can talk to.
Okay. If you do have somebody in mind that could be in that line of work,
Sure.
forward their contact to us
Yeah,
and we'll
okay.
go for. But tonight I will talk to my ex-wife, whatever. I don't even know what I am. And then I will talk to her about it and then see that we can agree to come.
Sure.
And then we'll set up a time and go from there.
Great. That sounds great. And I want to acknowledge there are some couples that I've worked with together. We started all together and it was clear that that was not going to be productive. And so I said, happy to work with you guys, but it's going to be separately now.
It's
So-
fine. No. You determine that, and I will apply whatever because my 100% target is to get Parker to be taken care of. So our involvement is how to take care of him because last thing I want to do is I have to deal with this when I'm 16, when he's 16,
Right.
and on a not very nice way.
Yeah.
We all know what I'm talking about. So
Yeah. No, you are being really smart in being intentional about managing this now and helping support him now. So, A, he feels better about himself, and B, he has connections and close relationships with both you and your ex. So I think it's great that you're addressing this now.
that works. Let's do that. You got my email. I already sent you one. I also have your contact. So if you didn't see my email, I will send another one again. And then we can go from there.
Okay. So you emailed me already then?
I click on one of your link and
Okay.
then I put my first name and my email address and you say you're going to send me the goodies. So I haven't seen the goodies, but that's what what I did.
Okay. I will look for it. But just so you know, on the melissabenaroya.com, there is a contact page, and that's a great place. I don't know where you plugged in your name.
Okay, I saw it right now. I can do that right now.
Yeah, so just shoot me that so I know exactly who to contact and get back in touch with.
Okay, sounds good. Well, you have a good day.
Thank you. You too, Robert.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Okay.
sticking around and chatting. Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.